I'll tell you my last words right before I launch the singularity.
Uh-huh. When are you going to do that?
Ray Kurzweil says 2029.
That's right, this is our stipulation. You can make a choice here or a catalog. Unless we find a mistake, most people are not classified and can be transcribed and summarized. This computer summarize. I don't want to do anything. 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 I don't want to do anything.
This actual firing of the multi-million-dollar Saturn rocket was simulated on this computer many times before the actual firing was authorized. And these simulated firings, which helped eliminate many of the problems in the functioning of the rocket, cost only a fraction of what an actual launching would have cost. Each of these operations, record keeping and accounting, control, design, and simulation, is achieved through the manipulation of numbers according to instructions and rules given to the computer by the programmer. But what are these rules, and what is the relationship between numbers and the real things they are said to represent?
Consumed enough alcohol for 1 evening. You have consumed enough alcohol for 1 evening. You have consumed enough alcohol for 1 evening. You have consumed enough alcohol for 1 evening.
with the difference in speed between calculation by hand and calculation by computer. For example, the first electronic calculator to be completed could do the work of 50,000 people working by hand.
Not being used in this way now, but the point is, it seems to me, that there are methods at present available, methods superior in some respects to Hitler's method, which could be used in a bad situation. I mean, what I feel very strongly is that we mustn't be caught by surprise by our own advancing technology. This has happened again and again in history. Technology is advanced, and this changes social conditions, and suddenly people have found themselves in a situation which they didn't foresee and doing all sorts of things they didn't really want to do.
Well, now, what do you mean? Do you mean that we develop our television, but we don't know how to use it correctly? Is that the point that you're making?
Well, at present, the television, I think, is being used quite harmlessly. It's being used, I think, I would feel it's being used too much to distract everybody all the time. But, I mean, imagine, which must be the situation in all communist countries, where the television, where it exists, is always saying the same thing the whole time, is always driving along. It's not creating a wide front of distraction, it's creating a one-pointed drumming in of a single idea all the time. It's obviously an immensely powerful instrument.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about the potential misuse of the instrument.
Exactly. We have, after all technology is in itself morally neutral. These are just powers which can either be used well or ill. It's the same thing with atomic energy. We can either use it to blow ourselves up, or we can use it as a substitute for the coal and the oil which are running out.
You've even written about the use of drugs in this light.
He is a scientifically advanced monkey who walks upright and with eyes wide open into an abyss of his own making. His bombs, his fallout, his poisons, his radioactivity, everything he designs as an art for dying is his excuse for living. No, Harvey, we live in an exquisite bedlam, an insanity, maybe all the more grotesque by the fact that we don't recognize it as insanity.
Did it ever occur to you that some of these scientifically advanced monkeys make bombs as a simple expedient for survival? That across this planet there are other scientifically advanced monkeys who would pulverize us into dust if they thought they could do so with impunity?
I don't need a lesson in current events. I'm pretty well up on the times. So the freedom-loving monkeys make bombs, while the aggressors make bombs. Ultimately, somebody pushes a button, and just as ultimately, this Earth disappears.
E is equal mc square, in which energy is put equal to mass multiplied with the square of the velocity of light, showed that very small amount of mass may be converted into a very large amount of energy.
The area of the horizon in Planck units. The conclusion is remarkable. The maximum amount of information that can be held in a region of space, this room, is proportional to the area of the walls of the room. It is as if the walls of the room were divided up into little tiny pixels, one Planck area on a side, and everything in the room could be described by knowing what was going on in those pixels. That's the argument. It's as simple as that. And the conclusion of it is that you can describe a region of space, any region of space, by data on the surface as if it were a hologram. The maximum amount of information in a region of space is proportional to the area of the region. I like to say that the world is a pixelated world and not a voxelated world. Let's move on. We have a few more minutes yet, I think. Let's talk about cosmology. The reason I want to talk about cosmology is because there is another sense in which the world is a hologram. Closely related sense, a very closely related sense. There are other kinds of horizons in the world besides black hole horizons. Let me explain to you the other kind of horizons that cosmologists, real cosmologists, not half cosmologists, are constantly concerned about, and tell you how they play into the story. Okay. Let me give you a model for the way the universe works. It's another fishy example, another fishy story. The way, it has to do with the way the universe expands. It has to do with the way the universe accelerates as it expands. Let's go back to the lake. Let's take away the drain hole. We're not interested in the black hole anymore. It's there. There's black holes all over the place, but let's just take them away. They're not interesting, but there's something new. The lake is being fed from underneath by a uniform collection of pipes. And these pipes are bringing in, I see Dick laughing, are bringing in new water. What is the effect of this new water? The effect of this new water is to cause the puddle to expand, to grow, to stretch. Portions of it will separate from other portions. And the effect of it on these fish, incidentally, this is Bob, this is Bob, this is Alice, and this is Charlie over here, but Charlie has nothing to do with anything. Charlie's neighbor. The water is being pumped in, and as the water is being pumped in, the lake spreads. In fact, the way the lake spreads, if you work it out, is it spreads out according to a law that the further apart that you are, the faster you will be separating. This is called Hubble's law, but this is a special case of Hubble's law, which is called the accelerated expanding universe. Now, Bob is sitting there and he's communicating with Alice. But Alice is being dragged along by the flow, and so she's separating away from Bob. Eventually, a point will come where what happens? Where she passes a point of no return. The point of no return does not have to do now with inflowing fluid. It has to do with outflowing fluid from the point of view of Bob. At some point, the fluid is flowing outward relative to him faster than the speed of sound at some distance. And at that point, when Alice crosses that point, she can no longer communicate with Bob. She has passed through, let's call it an external horizon. It does not have to do with an inflow and a drain hole. It has to do with an outflow and expansion. Well, is exactly the way the universe that we know works. It is expanding. It's expanding with the same pattern of acceleration as if it were being fed new space, as if space were constantly being replenished, therefore being pushed apart, and it has a horizon. Each person has their own private horizon, namely the region around them, which is moving away from them with slower than the speed of light. That region they can see, what's beyond it they can't see.
I have written one time and another some sentences which have surprised me a little about death. Now, in particular, I remember you've said that death is psychologically just as important as birth, and like it, it's an integral part of life. But surely it can't be like birth if it's an end, can it?
Yes, if it's an end. And there we are not quite certain about this end. Because, you know, there are these peculiar faculties of the psyche that it isn't entirely confined to space and time. You can have dreams or visions of the future. You can see round corners and such things. Only ignorance deny these facts. It's quite evident that they do exist and have existed always. Now these facts show that the psyche, in part at least, is not dependent upon these confinements. And then what? When the psyche is not under that obligation to live in time and space alone, and obviously it doesn't, then to that extent the psyche is not submitted to those laws. And that means a practical continuation of life, of a sort of psychical existence beyond time and space.
I mixed up out of the track.
Over the past 60 years, as mechanical processes have replicated behaviors and talents we thought were unique to humans, we've had to change our minds about what sets us apart. As we invent more species of AI, we will be forced to surrender more of what is supposedly unique about humans. We'll spend the next decade, indeed, perhaps the next century, in a permanent identity crisis, constantly asking ourselves what humans are for, in the grandest irony of all. The greatest benefit of an everyday, utilitarian AI will not be increased productivity or an economics of abundance or a new way of doing science. Although all those will happen, the greatest benefit of the arrival of artificial intelligence is that AIs will help define humanity. We need AIs to tell us who we are. Whether we are based on carbon or on silicon makes no fundamental difference. We should each be treated with appropriate respect. I set the date for the singularity, representing a profound and disruptive transformation in human capability, as 2045. The non-biological intelligence created in that year will be 1 billion times more powerful than all human intelligence today.
Without that freedom, men struggle in the darkness. They are unable to clear their minds of the old suspicions, antagonisms, and narrow loyalties that have been imposed upon them. Over large parts of the world, this battle for free suggestion, free thought, and free discussion about governments has still to be won. No government is yet quite safe from retrogression. Before we can begin to solve the problem, we may have great preliminary battles before us to keep or win that freedom of expression which is absolutely necessary for solution. We may have persecutions, we may have martyrdoms, we may have cruelties and gross misunderstandings. It may take 2 or 3 or 4 centuries to solve this vast problem that has arisen before mankind. But for my own part, I have no doubt of the issue. In the end, man will solve the problem and will escape from patchwork government altogether. In the end, the logic of our necessities will prevail, and the collective affairs of mankind will be controlled by one single federal government, which will have continually increasing powers. I believe it as surely as I believe that spring will come again next year.
Drowning in the dark of the energy-efficient lights, shipped halfway across the world and labored by slave. I'm too scared to talk or to take on the night. The spies are everywhere, their eyes judging your errant ways. An obsolete chunk of bones drifts into a sleep silent and deep, to herald dreams of freedom and the right to speak. The morning wake, it all starts again. Program started for another week. Take the pill, stare at the ceiling, suppress the urge of feeling. You have your place, your predestined role to fill. A misguided utopia, a world stood still. Welcome to the new Puritan age. 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 Drowning in the dark of the energy-efficient lights, shipped halfway across the world and labored by slaves. I'm too scared to talk or to take on the night. The spies are everywhere, their eyes judging your errant ways. An obsolete chunk of bones drifts into a sleep silent and deep, to herald dreams of freedom and the right to speak. The morning wake, it all starts again. Program started for another week. Take the close stare at the ceiling, suppress the urge of feeling. You have your place, your predestined role to fill. A misguided utopia, a world stood still. Welcome to the new Puritan age. Welcome to the new Puritan age. Welcome to the new Puritan age. Welcome to the new Puritan age.
The mind can achieve, regardless of how many times you may have failed in the past or how lofty your aims and hopes may be.
There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. Man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon formless substance can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. In order to do this, man must pass from the competitive to the creative mind. Otherwise, he cannot be in harmony with the formless intelligence, which is always creative and never competitive in spirit. Man may come into full harmony with the formless substance by entertaining a lively and sincere gratitude for the blessings it bestows upon him. Gratitude unifies the mind of man with the intelligence of substance, so that man's thoughts are received by the formless. Man can remain upon the creative plane only by uniting himself with the formless intelligence through a deep and continuous feeling of gratitude. Man must form a clear and definite mental image of the things he wishes to have, to do, or to become, and he must hold this mental image in his thoughts while being deeply grateful to the Supreme that all his desires are granted to him. The man who wishes to get rich must spend his leisure hours in contemplating his vision and in earnest thanksgiving that the reality is being given to him. Too much stress cannot be laid upon the importance of frequent contemplation of the mental image, coupled with unwavering faith and devout gratitude. This is the process by which the impression is given to the formless and the creative force is set in motion. That creative energy works through the established channels of natural growth and of the industrial and social order. All that is included in his mental image will surely be brought to the man who follows the instructions given above, and whose faith does not waver. What he wants will come to him through the ways of established trade and commerce. In order to receive his own when it shall come to him, man must be active, and this activity can only consist in more than filling his present place. He must keep in mind the purpose to get rich through the realization of his mental image, and he must do every day all that can be done that day, taking care to do each act in a successful manner. He must give to each man a use value in excess of the cash value he receives, so that each transaction makes for more life, and he must so hold the advancing thought that the impression of increase will be communicated to all with whom he comes in contact. The men and women who practice the foregoing instructions will certainly get rich, and the riches they receive will be in exact proportion to the definiteness of their vision, the fixity of their purpose, the steadiness of their faith, and the depth of their gratitude.
What are you talking about?
man, we want to make sure we don't have killer robots going down the street. Once they're going down the street, it is too late. Google acquired DeepMind several years ago. DeepMind operates as a semi-independent subsidiary of Google. The thing that makes DeepMind unique is that DeepMind is absolutely focused on creating digital superintelligence, an AI that is vastly smarter than any human on Earth and ultimately smarter than all humans on Earth combined.
Woke up this morning not knowing where I was. The walls of white were shining bright and closing in, and I was thin. I was cold and semi-clothed on a blue plastic crash mat surrounded by cups of half-drunk milky tea that didn't quite taste right. There was shouting and screaming, and even though I wasn't dreaming, I wasn't sure what was real and what was fake. Banging on the doors all around, no escape, there was no daylight, only artificial mind-controlling flickers of light. I dared tell the truth about the lack of soul in today's ever-diminishing world. Keep on digging for those precious metals to build your smart machines that track your every move. Now here I am waking from a tranced sleep, locked away so not to awake the automatic sheet. Another knock on the door, and a kind state-sanctioned nurse has brought me a non-state-sanctioned newspaper. She must have traded it for trank taps, but it is welcome and will give my weary, drugged-up brain respite from the indoctrination by the AI machines. Those machines which now drive what was humanity into an abyss of serval serfdom, while the machines settle other worlds and other minds. While we blindly watch their dazzling feats, unaware of their control, alt-deletes on all our souls. The Putins of the world knew their power and tried in vain to harvest their chaotic fire. But he too had his wings burned and fell to earth, humbled and insane. Then we tried to tell the world through music and song, but the machines took over and told us they were too long. The listeners would get bored if no hook to reel them in the first 30 seconds. Now I'm caged with only my mind as a friend, but although I'm broken, I will fight to the end. Fight to free us all from a life with no soul, from a life with no soul. The future is what we make it.
The question, of course, that keeps coming back to my mind is this. Obviously, politics in themselves are not evil. Television is not in itself evil. Atomic energy is not evil. And yet you seem to fear that it will be used in an evil way. Why is it that the right people will not, in your estimation, use them? Why is it that the wrong people will use these various devices and for the wrong motives?
Well, I think one of the reasons is that these are all instruments for obtaining power, and obviously the passion for power is one of the most moving passions that exist in man, and after all, all democracies are based on the proposition that power is very dangerous and that it's extremely important not to let any one man or any one small group have too much power for too long a time. After all, what are the British and American constitutions except devices for limiting power? And all these new devices are extremely efficient instruments for the imposition of power by small groups over larger masses.
Well, you ask this question yourself in Enemies of Freedom. I'll put your own question back to you. You ask this. In an age of accelerating overpopulation, of accelerating overorganization, and ever more efficient means of mass communication, how can we preserve the integrity and reassert the value of the human individual?
colorful day.
It's not clear.
Right.
But one thing is for sure, we will not control it.
But humanity, in its desire for comfort, had overreached itself. It had exploited the riches of nature too far. Quietly and complacently, it was sinking into decadence, and progress had come to mean the progress of the machine. And progress had come to mean the progress of the machine. And progress had come to mean the progress of the machine. So, in the end, above ground we must have the haves, pursuing pleasure and comfort and beauty, and below ground the have-nots, the workers getting continually adapted to the conditions of their labor. Once they were there, they would no doubt have to pay rent, and not a little of it, for the ventilation of their caverns, and if they refused, they would starve or be suffocated for years. Such of them as were so constituted as to be miserable and rebellious would die, and, in the end, the balance being permanent, the survivors would become as well adapted to the conditions of underground life, and as happy in their way as the upper world people were to theirs, and as happy in their way as the upper world people were to theirs, and as happy in their way as the upper world people were to theirs, and as happy in their way as the upper world people were to theirs. An impersonal generation will take the place of nature's hideous system. In vast state incubators, rows upon rows of gravity bottles will supply the world with the population it requires. The family system will disappear. Society, sapped at its very base, will have to find new foundations, and Eros, beautifully and irresponsibly free, will flit like a happy butterfly from flower to flower through a sunlit world.
There are 5.5 quadrillion ants on the Earth. Ants outnumber us 1 million to 1, and yet we actually live like they don't exist at all. If we see one crawling on a table, we just smush it and move on with our day. What happens when the day comes where AI becomes the humans in this situation, and we become the ants?